Hi, and welcome to my short overview of the purpose statement and research questions. This is Dr. Rankin, and this is for the doctoral residencies. Today we're going to look at the connection between problem statements and purposes, the way that you organize research methodology ideas by using your problem, purpose, and research questions to create alignment. It's important to understand the process starts when you narrow your topic. You start narrowing your ideas, you get your research topic to something that is more concise and is something that is researchable. Those are two important ideas, is the scope of your work, how concise it is, and how researchable it is. So one of the questions that you're going to want to understand is the purpose of your study. People are going to ask you this question, and it's also going to help guide you along the way. And the purpose is the why of why are you doing this study. So the basic idea, like in the problem statement, you would say the problem is, and be able to concisely tell me what the problem is. The purpose is the same way. The purpose of the study is to, what are you doing? What are you doing? What is this study going to do? And then how will the study address the problem? Because the problem statement and the purpose statement are connected. They are, the purpose comes from the problem. So when you're thinking about creating your purpose statement, you have to think about what is the focus of interest. What are you most interested in getting out of your research? And then you want to look at why. Why is the research interesting? Why is it important, really? I mean, what is causing you to want to study this, and what are you hoping you're going to get from this? What are you going to learn? How is it going to solve the problem, or will start to solve the problem? How will we know your results will be of value to the field? And who is going to benefit from this? These are all questions that you want to answer with your purpose statement. The purpose statement should be clear, focused, concise, and researchable. Again, it's important to know that you are going to be doing research to solve a problem. The purpose of your study is to do the research to solve the problem. It's got to be researchable. It's got to be something that can be done. The purpose statement is built upon the foundation of the problem statement. So fill in the blank. The problem is your problem. The purpose of the study is to blank in order to blank so that blank will benefit. Now you can see that you have to have the problem statement before you can create a purpose statement. It's very important because they build upon each other. You have the problem, and then from the problem flows the purpose. So let's look at the example. So the problem is 8th grade students in Tacoma School District are performing below the statewide standard on the math portion of the standardized exam, as evidenced by, and you would have your evidence there. So the purpose of this qualitative study is to assess the effectiveness of an alternative process to teach math to 8th graders in Tacoma and determine whether it is associated with an increased performance on statewide standardized exam. So the subtle idea here is it's not what you learn about the problem. It is what you learn from the solution that matters. In other words, what is it that you're going to solve? How are you going to solve it? What is your work going to do to help solve the problem that you have found? Or, and really honestly, to help solve is the best way to look at it. Because you may not completely solve the problem. You may not end, you may not even find the answer. There is the chance that you'll do your research and it will not find the answer that you were hoping to find. However, the idea here is what are you hoping to solve? What are you hoping to start to solve? How are you going to help with this problem? And how is your research going to help with this problem? So you know the problem, you know your purpose. So now you have to figure out how are you going to complete that purpose? How are you going to solve the problem? What are you going to research? And that is dictated by your research questions. In quantitative, you'll remember you will have hypotheses, and each hypothesis is going to have variables that you're going to be measuring. You still will have an overall research question, but you might only have one. And then under that research question, you're going to have your hypotheses and your null hypotheses. And those are going to say the relationship between the variables that you are expecting to see. With qualitative research, it's more open because you don't know the answer. In quantitative, you think you know the answer and you're going to do a study to prove that what you have thought is true or not true. In qualitative, you don't know. And so since you don't know, you've got to find out by asking the research questions. And then when you do mixed methods, you're going to have both research questions for the qualitative, research question and hypotheses for the quantitative, and then you're also going to have a research question that the mixed methods is going to solve. In other words, you're going to gather data from quantitative, you're going to gather data from qualitative, and then what's the question that's going to be answered by having both of those sets of data? That's your mixed methods question, or your overarching question for the final part of the study. So research questions are going to answer the problem. So you have the problem, you have the purpose. If we go back and look at the purpose here, the purpose is to assess the effectiveness of an alternative process. So what questions, since this is qualitative, what questions are you going to be asking? And who are you going to be asking these questions to? Are you going to be asking the teachers? Are you going to be asking the principals? Who are you going to be asking questions to? And how can these questions assess the effectiveness of the alternative math process? Ultimately, I would, if one of my students had come to me with this purpose statement, I would probably say that this should be a quantitative study, because all you have to do is know that an alternative process is being taught in a classroom, and then you just need to monitor the performance on the standardized exams and see if there's a statistical difference between the regular process and the alternative process. That would be a quantitative study, in my opinion. But let's just say that we wanted to understand the alternative process better in order to understand how it's effective. You'd want to then ask teachers the questions. Well, what questions would you ask them to assess the effectiveness? That's what you have to think about. Remember, these aren't interventions. You don't want to be too detailed. A research question is the overarching question. From the research question, you will create interview questions to answer that research question. So the research question is the broader picture, the bigger picture of what you're looking for to know. And then the interview questions will come from those broader questions. The research questions guide your data collection process, because from them, like I said, the interview questions come. From the research question, the hypotheses come in quantitative. And all of this is linked together to solve the problem. I've had a colleague who had a student that they did not link the interview questions closely to the research questions. And when they finished and analyzed all their data, they found out that one of the research questions they could not answer because they had not asked an interview question or a set of interview questions to get the answers to that question. So in their dissertation, they had to say there was not enough data to answer this question. Now, in and of itself, that's not, the end of the world. However, that's not something that you want to have happen. So make sure that you're aligning the research questions so that they solve the problem, or they can work to solve the problem, help to solve the problem, and fulfill your purpose. And then if you're doing qualitative or if you're doing quantitative, your hypotheses or your interview questions come from that space. They will answer the research questions. And in quantitative, you have an additional step of that you will have to create a survey to get the data to answer your hypotheses. Sometimes that data is being already generated and you're just analyzing numbers. Other times you may want to send out a survey or like a leadership questionnaire or something like that in order to collect the data. So you'll just, that's the final part of the quantitative. So examples of research questions. Obviously, why do leaders cross the road is a too broad. I mean, clearly. How many leaders crossed the road on July 21st of 2016? That's way too specific. You may have 0. You don't know that that date is the date that leaders will have crossed the road. And if you did, what does it mean that that date? Why is that date special? It's way too specific. And then a better research question, and again, you want to address all the variables in your research questions. What were some of the social and environmental factors that occurred in Seattle, Washington in July of 2016 that contributed to residency students crossing Denny Way? It's very specific. You know who you're looking at, you know who your population is, you know what you're looking for. And so this one is a very good research question that you could actually answer, and that answer could help to solve the problem if you were studying why people cross the road. Well, why residency students cross the road. Here's some vague examples. Now, these are way too vague. Will leadership training make employees more successful? Will it? Well, maybe, maybe not. There's really no direct answer here because there's too many variables. We don't know whether or not the leadership training made them more successful. Their success could be for another reason. There's so many variables to success that you can't narrow it down to just one thing. And then what kind of leadership training are we talking about? There's so many different types. So what specific type of leadership training? What employees are you talking about? Are you talking about employees of a bank, or are you talking about employees of a school? You know, that also needs to be sussed out. Will professional development make teachers more effective? Well, what kind of professional development? What kind of teachers? What do you mean by more effective? What does effective mean? How are you measuring effectiveness for a teacher? These are the kind of things you have to think out. So this is a little bit better from the previous slide. Will leadership training make employees more successful at leading their teams as evidenced by the results from a 360 review of employees using the XYZ tool? Now, I would also expect that the leadership training was defined as well. What leadership training are you giving them? But you can see at least now we know why we're looking at this, and then who we're looking at and how we're going to look at them. Will professional development help teachers lead their classes to improve scores on the ABC standardized exam? Again, you'd want to define what you mean by professional development, but this is better because it gives you more information about what you're looking at. I would want to see, you know, will XYZ professional development program help teachers in the K through 12 system lead their classes to improve scores on the ABC standardized exam? You know, and be even more specifically, if the ABC standardized exams happen every year for every grade level, then that's fine. But what if they only happen in the 9th grade or the 5th grade and then the 9th grade? You know, so that you'd want to say that in the research question to narrow that down even more. So in summary here, the problem statements need to be clear, concise, limited in scope. Don't try to solve the problem for the whole world. Purpose statements are why you're investigating the problem and the intervention you propose to address the problem. And research questions are what you intend to ask to answer with your research. In other words, they all build together. They're all aligned. The problem leads to the purpose leads to the research questions. It all works together. They all need to work together. And that's the thing that we're going to be working on in residency, and that you'll be working with your chair and your committee on, is making sure you have strong alignment between these things, because they are the core of your dissertation. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.